Hi.
Okay, so as you know, we talked about we talked about regular languages in finite automata. We talked about push-down automata, PDA, right? And now today I would like to discuss something about context-free languages and consequently its grammar, which is type 2 grammar. So we call it as CFL, context-free languages, and finally type 2 grammar, which is context-free grammar. Okay. And so because each language has a grammar. Okay. English has a grammar, English language has a grammar, Sanskrit language has a grammar, and so on. So each language has a grammar. So here the language context free has a grammar, context free grammar. I will not talk much about context sensitive, but then I will finally talk about Turing machine, okay, which is important one. So normally in this first introduction to theoretical computer science, I am not picking up much about this, but I'll give you a brief idea what this linear bounded automata is, but I'll not talk much about it. So context-free languages, so these are the languages which are accepted by push-down automata. So examples are A and Bn. As you know that A and Bn cannot be accepted by any DFA or NFA, so they are not regular languages, right? They cannot be accepted. So these are this language or this language are examples of context-free languages, or in short, we call it as CFL, context-free languages. So each language has a grammar, so we can describe these context-free languages with the help of what is known as context-free grammar, and we can also describe it by what is known as push-down automata. Okay, so this is a correspondence. So either we describe it by a machine, or it can be described by the language, or it can be described by a grammar. All are equivalent. Okay, the push-down automata means a finite automata with a stack memory. So context-free grammar. So grammar, express languages. For example, the English language is sentence, noun, predicate, and so on. Verb. So we have these kind of rules here, right? So we can use these rules to find out we form the sentence. The dog sleeps, right? So using these sentences in a similar manner, let me show you. These rules are known as production rules. So basically, uh, sentence words which are formed from the sentences are known as terminals, and these things are just like noun and everything are variables. So basically, in more precisely, mathematically, we have s is a variable. S is a variable here. Okay, and a and b are and this is a sequence of terminals. So a, s, b, sequence of terminals and variables. So this is a variable, and a and b are terminals. Okay, they are known as terminals. Okay. And this is also a variable. Lambda is a right side maybe a lambda empty symbol, empty thing. So now actually let me describe what this grammar will find. So how we will find the language from this grammar. So what you do, so there are two rules, rule number 1 and rule number 2. So I will use rule number 1, s going to ASB, right? And then I can use s going to lambda here. So we will get s going to AB, right? So basically, using this rule twice, I got s going to AB. Then I can use again iteration here, because s going to ASB, right? I can replace s by ASB, right? This s is replaced by this using this rule 1. And then again using second rule, s going to lambda, this will give us AABB. So that's another string generated by this language. I mean this grammar actually. Another string of the language is generated. So essentially, so like this, so we can have a derivation of the string AABB here by using s going to ASB, which is going to AASSB, because this portion is, I'm using this s is replaced by this, and then we get this, right? So we can continue this. Other derivations are possible. So S going to ASB, you see, I'm using rule 1. Then this S is replaced with ASB, and then again, again I'm using the same rule, S going to ASB. So this will be 3 A's, 3 B's, and S. So basically, this portion is replaced. This is replaced by S. This S is replaced by ASB, and then again S going to lambda will give us this. So a derivation is possible for 3 A's and 3 B's. Similarly, 4 A's and 4 B's. In other words, I can get language A and Bn. So these two production rules are enough to give you the language this. So you should know, given the production rules of the grammar, you should know how to generate the language, or given the language, you should know how to generate the grammar. I mean, how to find out the rules of the grammar, So this is something as an exercise. So I have given you many such exercises in, in the assignment 4. So there is a convenient way, starting from start variable S. Okay, in 0 or more derivation steps, we arrive at this. We can write it down all the middle computations. This can be written like S going to in 0 or more derivation, giving us the string this, right? So this is another way of describing. It's very convenient notation. So in general, so basically we write W1 in 0 or more derivation gives you Wn. So in other words, W1 will give you W2, will give you W3, and so on. And we know that W is trivially will give W. So that means S will give you lambda, that is in zero derivation. That is one possible derivation from these two production rules. This is another one, and so on. This is another way of writing these things. Now these two production rules can be written in a very compact manner like this by using this pipe notation. Okay, so this pipe notation. So S is going to ASB pipe lambda. Okay, that means S is going to ASB is one rule, and S is going to lambda is another rule. Okay, these two production rules. Okay, so this pipe notation is quite useful to write in a compact form. So formal definition: a grammar is we have a set of variables. Okay, T set of terminal symbols like a, small b, and so on. S is the start variable, which we saw, and P is a set of production rules. Okay, so in other words, and all in the case of context-free grammar, all production rules. So basically, depending upon this production rule, depending upon what kind of production rules we are using to generate the language has been classified into different 4 ways. So one of them. So when all productions in P are of the form that left hand side there is a variable and right hand side there is a string of variables and terminals. So these are known as context-free grammar. So in a context-free grammar, all the productions are of this form. Left hand side there is a single variable, and right hand side is a string of variables and terminals. Okay. So this is an example of context-free grammar, because the production, there are 2 production rules, right? So how do we write? V is a set of variables. There is only one variable S in this example. T is terminals. There are 2 terminals symbols A and B. S is the start variable, which is there, and production rules. There are 2 production rules. We write it like this bracket: S going to ASB and S going to lambda. There are 2 production rules. Okay. So this is how we write. So VTSV is a 4 tuple. So the grammar is described by these 4 tuples, set of variables. In some grammars, there could be more variables. Rather than this, in this example, there is only one variable S, which is start variable. In certain other examples, there will be more variables. So let me see if we have more examples here. So by the way, the language of the grammar with the start variable S can be described as all those strings of terminals or lambda. So that starting from the start variable, in 0 or more derivation, you arrive at W. Okay, W is in T star. So language is described by all those strings W, which can be derived from these production rules. Okay, in 0 or more derivation, starting from the start variable. That is nothing but the language of the grammar. So For this context-free grammar, S going to ASB and pipe lambda, language is A and Bn, right? So since there is derivation that S from start variable, in 0 or more derivations, we arrive at A and Bn for any n. Okay. So a language L is context free if there is a context free grammar G, okay, which generates the language. Okay, so then we say that the language is context free, which is straightforward. So this language is a context free language since its context free grammar is S going to ASB and lambda. Here is another example. Now you see there are 3 production rules. One is S going to ASA, second production rule is S going to BSB, and third production rule is S going to lambda. Okay. So what are the example derivations that we can get? So from S, we can use ASA, again use, now we have 2 choices here. So either we start with this derivation and then we use S again with this one, or we use this one. So we can get this, you see, we can get this kind of a string, or we can get this kind of a string. So
अरे आप फोन दोगी कि खुद ही को यूज करना था, और मेरा बहाना बना रही थी कि मैं छू नहीं सकती फोन.
Hello. Anyway, so language of the grammar is palindromes of even length. Okay. So you can see that these are the palindrome strings A, B, okay, A, B and B, A. You can see that A, B is there and B, A is there, so the reverse of this, A, B, A, okay, and A, B, A, okay. So these are the reversed things, it's a palindrome. So actually it is written as WWR, but W is a string of, W is any string of AB. Okay. So similarly, there is another example of context-free grammar. So you can see that in all these production rules, left-hand side there is only single variable, and right-hand side is a combination of terminals and variables. If this happens, then we say that it is a context-free grammar. Okay. So this is another example. I'm skipping it. It's of parentheses, matched parentheses. Well, now I can briefly talk about derivation order and derivation trees. I'll not go into much details, but consider the following example. We have five production rules: S going to AB, A going to AA, B going to BB, A going to lambda, and B going to lambda. Now you see, in the first one, we have 2 variables on the right hand side, A or B. So in this next step, either I can use this A or I can use this B. So you have 2 ways I can evaluate this. So let us see in both ways. The first leftmost derivation. So what we are doing, we are going to use only leftmost derivation first. So S going to AB, and then replace A by AAA, right? And then again use A going to lambda, so you get AAB. Then use, fourth item, which is B going to BB, so this, and then B going to lambda, so we arrive this. So basically what we are doing at each step, we are substitute leftmost variable. So whatever is the leftmost variable, I am using that, I am applying that production rule to arrive at this string. Similarly, we can use rightmost derivation. So there are 2 possible of derivations. Rightmost derivation of the string AAB is this. Okay. So basically S going to AB, then I am using B. I'm using B and replacing it with BB, right? I'm rightmost first. Okay. And then I'm using B going to lambda. The rightmost will give you AB. Okay. And then I'm using for A, which is AAB, and then I'm using for A going to lambda, then that means AAB, right? So for the same string AAB, there are 2 derivations possible. Okay. So one is leftmost derivation, another one is rightmost derivation. Okay. So we form what is known as derivation tree. Same example grammar, and the derivation of AAB, we can, draw what is known as derivation tree. So S going to AB, yield is AB, then yield is AAAB, and yield is A, B, and so on. So here is a derivation tree. So these derivation trees are quite useful for parsing the things, and especially quite useful in compiler construction. But anyway, we are not going to discuss any of those things. You will see this in your actual model of computation class sometime. Okay, so these are known as a derivation tree or parse tree. Okay. Anyway, so sometimes this derivation order does not matter. No matter which way you do the derivation, it will give you the same derivation tree. In some time it does not. So then there is ambiguity, and we can remove the ambiguity. Okay. So I'm not going to talk about the ambiguity now, but there are ways to do that. Okay. Now let me talk about briefly regular grammar. Okay. So I talked about context-free grammar, CFL. I talked about CFL, context-free language, and context-free grammar. So remember the context-free grammar, the production rules of the form that there is a variable on one variable on left hand side, and right hand side there is a sequence of terminals and variables. That is a condition. If the production rules of this form, then it is a context-free grammar. Now I'm going to talk about briefly the regular grammar. Very briefly. So first I'll talk about linear grammar. Grammar with at most one variable. With at most one variable at the right side of a production. So you see, for example, in this example, there is only one variable on the right hand side, which is S. Okay. Or take an example here, A is the only variable, one variable on the right hand side. Such kind of grammar is known as linear grammar. Okay. If in the right side of the production rule, there is only one variable, so such grammar is known as linear grammar. Here is an example of a non-linear grammar, because you see, because of this term here it is fine, and these production rules there is only one variable on the right hand side, but here there is a product of two variables, right? So this is an example of a non-linear grammar. Okay. So linear grammar, non-linear grammar. Linear grammar is a grammar where in the production rule right hand side there is only at most one variable. So this here is an example of another linear grammar, right? The language, I think you know about this. You can see that there is only one variable here, A or B, right? Only one. In each production rule, there is only at most one variable on the right hand side. Now we can talk about what is known as right linear grammars. When all productions are of this form, that on left hand side there is a single variable, and right hand side is X is a string of terminals like small a, small b, small c, and so on, and B, or A going to X. If the production rules are of this form, okay, then it is known as right linear grammar. Okay. So for example, you see here, this is your X, which is AB and S. Okay, and S going to A is here. So this is, in this example, either S is going to here or here, so S going to A or in AB or whatever, and S going to ABS. So this is your, this is of this form. So production rules are of this form, so it is a right linear grammar. Similarly, we can define left linear grammar. So right linear grammar, when the production rule is on the right hand side, you see B is on the right hand side of sequence of terminals. When it is on the left hand side, it is known as left linear grammar. Okay, for example, in this, A is on the left, you see, right? So this is known as left linear grammar. Now we can talk about regular grammar. A grammar is said to be regular if a regular grammar is any right linear or left linear grammar. So grammar should be linear first of all. That means on the right hand side there should be at most one variable, and it should be either right linear or left linear, right? So for example, in this case, you can see that variable is on the right side, it's a right linear grammar. Variable on the left side, it's a left linear grammar, right? So this is a right linear grammar, and this is a left linear grammar, right? So any such grammar which is either right linear or left linear is known as regular grammar. Okay. So this is the definition of regular grammar. Now there are certain observations. So regular grammar generates regular languages, So you can see that, you can find out. I leave it as a tea time exercise for you. Okay. Just to take this language, take this grammar and find out that the language is this. Take this grammar and find out the language is this. Okay. So regular grammar generates regular languages, which is obvious thing. Of course, one can prove that the language generated by regular grammar is equivalent to regular languages, and then you show the subset inclusion from both sides. So any regular grammar generates a regular language. So language generated by regular grammar is a subset of regular languages, and any regular language is generated by a regular grammar. That's the other way. I think I will give you briefly one example here. So proof of the part one. The language LG generated by any regular grammar is regular. Okay. So the case of a right linear grammar, let G be a right linear grammar, we can show that the language of the G is regular. So we can construct an NFA M such that the language of M is same as language of the grammar. So how do we do that? So we are assuming that the K it's a right linear grammar. Here is an example. I'll give you an example only. Suppose this is the grammar S going to A. Okay, it's a right linear. Okay. So there are how many production rules? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There are 5 production rules. So basically S going to A is one production rule, S going to B is another production rule, A going to B is another production rule, B going to B is another production rule, and B going to A is another production rule. So there are 5 production rules written with the help of pipe. Okay, so how many variables are there? First of all, we check S is 1. So set variable set is S, A, and B. This is our variables. So there are 3 variables, and terminal set is A and B, right? This is our terminal set in the grammar. Okay. So now we will use these things to generate the NFA. So what you do? Those many variables we write it down, right? S, A, B, right? So there were 3 variables, and then we make a special final state as VF. Just a new symbol, VF. So every state is a grammar variable. So S, A, and B are the grammar variables. All these, in the production rules, S, A, B is there. So I am writing it as a grammar rule. Now I look at the first production rule, S going to AA, right? So then I can make here an arrow, and then I write A on it. So the first production rule, I can construct an NFA, the first transition in the NFA like this. Then I use the second one with lambda, because S going to, from S with lambda, I will go to B, right? Because there is nothing here in front of B, as you can see, right? Then then A going to AA, right? And then B. So then we have another state in between, and we go to B. Then B going to BB, right? So I'm from B, so this production rule here will correspond to this loop here, small b going to B. Okay. Then B going to A. So finally, we arrive at NFA. Okay. So any production rule this can be converted into, this kind of NFA. So all these production rules have give rise us this NFA. Okay. So basically, this is a way. I just gave you an example. Given a grammar like this, I can construct an NFA. That means, the first portion, this is in general also this technique works. A right linear grammar has variables and production rules like this. Using these production rules, we construct the, each variable corresponds to a node in the terminal, and then we have this special final state all the time, right? And then we make this for each production rule. This we add transitions and intermediate nodes, right? Finally, we add. So some resulting NFA looks like this, and it holds that language of this grammar is same thing as language of this NFA. Similarly, the case of left linear grammar, we can say that how the language is.
Hello, sir.
Yes.
So can you go back 2 3 slides?
Yes.
In this one, how
Yes.
did you construct the first that after S to B? I didn't understand. What
See
is
what
C?
happens. So for each production rules, I am doing this. See, for the first production rule was S going to AA, right? So whatever is here,
Yes.
that goes on the edge. Okay, because the first thing is how many variables are there? One, two, three. Three variables are there: S, A, and B, right? And then we have a final state. This is a special one, which we add from our side, the special state, right? Then what we do, for each production rule, I am writing a transition. S going to AA means there is a transition from S to A with A here on the edge. Whatever is coming here. Now from S to B, there is nothing. So S to B is same thing as S to B is same thing as S going to lambda B, right? Because lambda B is same thing as B. So that's why there is this lambda here. You see, for the second one, second production rule. Right?
Okay. That
What
means if
and
like slash B,
yeah,
it means that S goes to as S going to lambda B, right? Means it means like
yeah, the B
uh,
itself. And whenever we have something like this in this production rule, you see there are two terminal things, AA here, right? So there we use intermediate nodes. So from A, you make an A. For one A, we make an intermediate node, right? Some intermediate node, you can rename it. And then from this, you made another A to B, because that's what it is, right? Okay. And then
okay,
from
sir.
B,
Thank you.
yeah. So I hope you got it. Yeah. So this is
Yes,
the
sir.
general
Thank you.
technique which we described here. So this is how we make NFA from the grammar. Okay. Similarly, for the left linear grammar, so I'm leaving this. You have the slides. You can look at it. Okay. I think that's all. Let me actually now talk about something new. That this is enough for you. So you might have got, because I think I'm not covering all the detailed things that will be there when you look at you do the full course on this. Okay, so now how much I have covered till now? Uh, I talked about, this is a very important slide. All time I always I'm bringing this slide. I talked about finite automata, that means DFA and NFA, right? And then the conversion from NFA to DFA. I talked about the properties of regular languages, right? I talked about regular expression, right, which is a shorthand for regular languages. And I also talk about uh, regular grammar. This is done. Then I also talked about context-free languages and context-free grammar, right? I'll talk about push-down automata. So this portion I am not going to cover. The third one, though it's not much use right now, but of course later on you can do in full swing. But now I'm going to talk about Turing machine, which is very, very important. In today class and in the next class, we are going to talk about Turing machine. Okay. So again, I'm thankful to Professor Bush. I'm using his slides all the time. The previous two slides are also prepared by him, and I'm using it with his permission. Okay, so there are languages, right? You remember, uh, we have the language, uh, you know, uh, DFA and NFA accepts regular languages, right? Like this, A star or A star B star. Then there are languages like this which cannot be accepted by DFA or NFA. So these are known as context-free languages. Then there are, so these are accepted by push-down automata. But then there are languages like AN, BN, CN that cannot be accepted by PDA. Also like this. So we need to extend. So in other words, what we need if we want to accept A and B and C, and we need a push down automata with 2 stack memory. Right now I have talked about push down automata with single stack memory, but in that case you require push down automata with 2 stack memory, which is equivalent to Turing machine. So what is Turing machine? Actually, we'll talk about it now. So Turing machine, it's a very important concept. as you know, I think I should mention briefly the history also. What happened in 1900, in the year 1900, it's a really important year. There was a international congress of mathematicians. There was a international congress on of mathematicians in Paris, where David Hilbert posed around 23 problems, and he said that these are the open problems for which humankind will remember him, and which is true actually. And it turns out that out of those 23 problems, some of them become very, very important, and still they are open, and some of them carry a price of around $1 million. One of them problem was decision problem. So Hilbert used to prove many things, in his mind, and he thought that maybe if I want to prove something as a mathematician, there should be a systematic way of proving the things. So he thought that maybe we can actually do proof in a mechanical way. So mind should think in a mechanical way to prove something. And then he said that is there a, so given a problem, is there any any statement or theorem, can we prove it systematically? That was his question, mechanical. Okay, so that mechanical word was misunderstood by Alan Turing, and he thought that he's asking for making a machine, and that is the discovery of Turing machine in 1936. So Turing gave this pen and paper machine, and Turing machine is why important, because all the computers, supercomputers, or laptop, or whatever computer you see is equivalent to Turing machine, from the theoretical point of view. So Turing machine, in that sense, is very, very important for you to understand. If you really want to understand computer science, you should really understand Turing machine first. Okay, how to program a Turing machine and so on. So whenever you want to make computer out of new things, say for example maybe a bacteria, or maybe through DNA, or or some other principles, or some other material, maybe a weighing machine, so you require the concept of Turing machine, because Turing machine sets a bar. Okay, how much is possible? So it's very, very important what you can compute with Turing machine. So it's very, very important. Okay, so Turing machine has finite automata thing, just like that we have. Okay, so this finite automata thing is there anyway. Control, it's like this control unit. So there are transitions, and the states and so on. And there is a tape. So read write tape. It's infinite tape. Okay, on. Okay, and both sides is infinite. Okay, please mute your mic. Okay. So there are no bonds. Sorry for this disturbance, actually. Okay, so this tape, is a read-write tape, and the head moves either left or right. Okay, and there are no boundaries. We assume that it's infinite length tape. So what this tape can do? So what this head can do? The head at each transition either reads a symbol, writes a symbol, and moves left or right. Okay. For example, if you look at this, okay. So we are head is reading A here, head is reading A here, right? And then it writes K here. A is replaced with K, actually, you can see that, and then moves towards left. Now it moves towards left and pointing towards B. So this operation is done by the tape. Similarly here, in these two timestamps, the first one, tape is reading, so head is reading B on the tape. Then replace B with F. You can see that B is placed with F, and it moves towards right. Okay. Sorry. So the input string is important here. So normally any input is given on the tape, and we put some blank symbols. So these are blank symbols here, you see. Blank symbols. So head is reading from here, and then it does the computation. Head starts at the leftmost position of the input string, and then it will move depending upon the transitions. So what are the states and transitions here? So there is a read. So basically, as you know, so we are in some state always Q1. At a given state, during tape head is reading something on the tape, so it reads A, writes B in place of A, and move either left or right and change the state to Q2. Similarly, if you are in Q1, read A, replace it with B, and move right. Okay, so either you move left or right and make some changes in the tape. Read something in the tape and replace it with something else. Write something. So these are the typical configurations of state and transitions in the Turing machine. So as you can see here in this example, current state is Q1, it is reading A. So we can describe it as, we are reading A here. We are in state Q1, reading A. Okay, then we replace it with B and move towards right. So replace it with B, and you see this A is replaced with B here now, and you move towards right, and the state is in Q2, right? So this is how you do the movement in Turing machine. Here is another example, reading A. Okay, so now you see that read A, we read A, replace it with B, replace it with B, and then move towards left, move towards left now, and change the state to Q2. Earlier state was Q1, now state is Q2. Okay, so this is how we do the movement. Another one, the state is in Q1, Turing machine state is in Q1, reading the blank symbol, reading the blank symbol, so reading the blank symbol. Now what this says, read the blank symbol, replace it with G, and move towards right. So this after C, you replace it with G, this blank symbol, okay, and move towards right, and the state is now Q2. Okay, so this is how you do the changes. So normally we study deterministic Turing machine, so we say that these Turing machines are deterministic, and no lambda transitions are allowed. That means, and also, so this is allowed, right? From Q1, you are in state Q1. After A, you go to, after reading A, you replace it with B, move towards right, or reading B, replace it with D and move towards left, and the state is either Q2 or Q2. This is allowed. But from the same input, okay, same reading, two different things are not allowed. So this is not possible here in the Turing machine, in the deterministic Turing machine. So partial transition function is allowed. So here, basically, it may be possible for some that no transition for some input symbol C. For example, input symbol C, which is there. So this Turing machine, so for A and B, we know what to do, but for C, we don't know what to do. So no transition for input symbol C. This is allowed. Okay. Halting. The machine halts in a state if there is no transition to follow. So so Turing machine accepts things by halting it to some state. Okay. So machine halts in a state if there is no transition to follow. So halting example, in this example, machine is reading C, right? And see no transitions. So for example, in this Turing machine, no transition from Q1. So machine halts. It doesn't know what to do, right? Another halting example. You see, this is a Turing machine. We know what to do for A and B. So no possible transition from Q1 and symbol C, right? So we are reading symbol C here, and we are in state Q1. Since in the machine, no possible transition from Q1 and symbol C, so machine halts. That's another example of halting. Machine will halt. Okay. Accepting states. So this is allowed. Okay, but from the final accepting states, outgoing transitions are not allowed. They have no outgoing, so this is not allowed. Okay. So in this case, machine halts and accepts. Okay. So acceptance accepts input string if machine halts in accepting state, and reject input string if machine halts in a non-accepting state, or machine enters into infinite loop. This is possible that machine may enter into an infinite loop. Okay. Okay. So this is the case. So one observation in the Turing machine is that in order to accept an input string, it is not necessary to scan all the symbols in the string. Okay. So this is a possibility. It is not necessary to scan all the symbols in the string. Some things may be left over. Okay. So let us take a first example. Input alphabet is sigma is equal to a comma b, and language is suppose a star, means all possible strings formed from a, right? And here is a Turing machine. So what happens? You see that you read a on the tape, you move right. You read a, you move right. You read a, you move right. Right? That's how it will happen. And once, because as you know that, so suppose tape has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 A's, and then after that blank symbol, and so on. Right? So as soon as you read a, read this. So this loop will take care of all A's. Then first time you hit blank symbol, you move left and accept and stop. Okay, so let us see an example here. On the tape we have a. You start from the start state Q0. You read a, move right. Read a, move right, and then you first hit blank symbol, move left and stop. So this is how you accept this, right? Halt and accept. So this simple Turing machine accepts all strings of any length of a, right? A followed by any number of times. Rejection example. Suppose we have ABA. So what will happen? You read A, you move right. Now there is no possible transition. So halt and reject. Right? For B, there is no. In the Turing machine, we don't know if we receive B what to do, right? So we no possible transition. So halt and reject. A simpler machine for the same language, but for input alphabet this, except the language A star is this actually, Okay. Okay, because why? So if there are A, so not necessarily you scan input, you accept. This is a possibility. Infinite loop example. Suppose we have language, A star plus B, A plus B star. So, so now what will happen? In the start state, Q0, if you read A, move right. If you read A, move right. If you read move A, move you right. If you read B, you move left, right? And as soon as you hit blank symbol, you move left and stop. Now you see example ABA. So you read A, move right. You read B, move left. Again you read A, move right. And so basically you stuck in an infinite loop between A and B, right? So this is a possibility. So possibility of Turing machine may enter into infinite loop. And this kind of things you might have encountered while writing programs, so it's very important. So because of the infinite loop, the accepting state cannot be reached. The machine never halts. The input string is rejected. Okay. So I think I will only do this example, and then I think I can stop today. And in the next class we will do rest of the things. So Turing machine for the language AN BN. Okay. So we know that pushdown automata accepts this language, PDA accepts this language, right? So if I want to define a Turing machine for accepting the language AN BN, what I should do, of course we need a start state. From where what we'll do, the basic idea is, as soon as you read A, you replace it with X and move right. You read A, replace it with X, move right. Okay, like this you do. So you need to, basic idea is you match A and B, because you see we have to accept equal number of A's and equal number of B's. So somehow I have to match number of A's and number of B's. In the case of pushdown automata, we have used stack memory, right? We used to push A, push A, push A. As soon as we read B, we pop A, pop A, pop A, right? As many times B is encountered, so the matching is done. Similarly, here what we are doing here in the Turing machine business, We match A's with B's. We repeat what we do. Replace leftmost A with X and find leftmost B and replace it with Y. B. So replace leftmost A with X, find leftmost B and replace it with Y. Until there are no more A's and B's. If there is a remaining A or B, reject. So that means if remaining means the number is not same. The number of A's and B's are not same. Is not same. Okay. So let us take an example here. So A, B, B. So equal number of A's, equal number of B's. So as you can see that you starting from the start state, you read A, replace it with X. You read another A. Okay. Move right. So what it does, you see, first you replace A with X, then immediately you don't have to do the same thing with next A, but rather you go and find next B and then replace it with Y, right? And then you come back and again you take the next A and then replace, until you go for the X, then read next A, replace it with X, and then go read Y, next go read next B, replace it with Y. Okay, so this is how we do the things. Finally we come back here, and then go back, and actually once we are done with replacing, you go back, and in the final, once you hit the blank symbol, you accept it, halt and accept. So remember, all the time when we hit the blank symbol, we arrive at this and stop here. Okay, from here we go here. That is how we accept. So the basic idea, I hope you understood. In the string A, B, B, read A, replace it with X, keep moving. So you have to design the transition in such a way, you keep moving, you read B, replace it with Y, then you come back and look at the next A after X, replace it with X, then you go back, read next B after Y and replace it with Y, and so on. Like this you keep on doing. If it is a longer number of A's and B's, you do the same thing. So this machine will do the job for you for accepting the language A and B and C N. So it's a very good exercise. If you take the language A and B N and C N, A N, B N and C N. Now you know that push-down automata cannot handle this with single stack, but Turing machine can. So what you do, you replace A with X, replace B with Y, and replace C with Z. In the same manner, you modify this machine and construct the Turing machine which can accept A and B N and C N. Okay. So I leave it as an exercise for you. You have to modify this machine somehow. Okay. So that so of course you need to add more number of states so that you can. So if the string is AA, BB, CC, right, like this, AA, BB, CC, right? So read A, replace it with X, then move here, read B, replace it with Y, then move C, replace it with Z, right? And then come back, hit X, then move next A, replace it with X, and so on. Like that you do, and you can construct the machine. Okay. So if you modify the machine for the language A and B N, we can easily construct a machine for the language A and B N C N. So this is an easy exercise for you. I think today or tomorrow, whatever, you can try at the tea time, try to construct the machine. You can look at these slides and see if you can do it easily, right? So I think I can just define formally how do we define Turing machines. So transition function, we are in some state Q1, you read A, replace it with B and move right, and you go to the state Q2 is written as delta of Q1A, the same thing as Q2, B and R, right? From Q1, you choose to move to state Q2, read A, replace it with B and move right, okay? Similarly, another transition function is described like this. So Turing machine is a 7 tuple. Okay, so Q is a set of states, sigma is the input alphabet, gamma is a tape alphabet, delta is the transition function, Q0 is the initial state. Then we have a blank symbol. Whenever input is there on the tape, it is enclosed by the blank symbol here on each side, and F is a set of accepting state. Right. Then we can talk about configuration. or IDs, just like in the instantaneous description, just like in the case of push down automata, we can have the instantaneous description in case of, or configuration in case of Turing machines. So for example, this Turing machine is in state Q1 reading B, right? So it can be written as the tape CA and BA, whatever is on the tape, and Q1 you insert before B where it is reading, like that. This is the idea of the Turing machine. Okay, so you can move from one configuration of the Turing machine to another configuration of the Turing machine, right? The states, observe that states is changed from Q2 to Q0, right? So this is known as yields in one move. So basically, using this idea of we can describe any computation of Turing machine in the form of these IDs, from this to this, from this to this, from this to this. Finally, equivalent notation we can write down that from this state, from this configuration to this configuration in 0 or more move, we go from this configuration to this configuration, or this ID to this ID. So this means that we are in state Q2 and reading X. Here we are in state Q1 and reading B, right? So initial configuration we can define. Q0 is a starter state and input string W, right? So this describes this state. This is the initial configuration. Okay, so the accepted language for any Turing machine M is all those strings W, okay, which are input to the Turing machine with the initial state Q0. In 0 or more move, we arrive at the accepting state Q, right? This is the definition of the language of the Turing machine. So if a language is accepted by a Turing machine M, then we say that L is Turing recognizable. Another name is Turing acceptable or recursively enumerable language, RE. This is a shorthand for languages which are accepted by Turing machine. One nice example is AN, BN, and CN. Right. I think that's all for today. If you have any questions, you please ask. Okay, if there is no questions, in the next
Hello,
class, yes, please ask.
Sir, in Turing machine, you said that we will use two stacks for.
Yeah, so that two stack business is equivalent. I have not shown you that statement, but I've just mentioned the statement. There is a proof also, but I think right now, I mean, it is beyond the scope. So the later on you will learn. Okay, so it's enough that a Turing machine is equivalent to push down automata with two stacks. Okay, single
Okay.
stack is not equivalent, but two stack is equivalent to it.
And sir, so can we generate a language AN, BN, CN, DN in Turing machine?
Yeah, so try it. It's a very good question. So do you think that you can do it?
Yes, sir, I think.
Yes, so just try it actually. Don't worry. See, actually, that's a very good thing here with the Turing machine. I will show you now how to compute certain functions, how to add two numbers using Turing machines. That I will show you in the next class. Okay. All those things we will talk about in the next class. Okay.
And sir, in the beginning of lecture, you taught grammar. So it was related to push down automata, right?
Yeah, I talked about the context-free grammar, which is related to push down automata. Yes. And then I talked about regular grammar, which is related to finite automata, DFA or NFA. I talked about two grammars only.
Yeah. So, sir, that is also related to the one stack representation of PDA.
Yeah,
right?
context-free grammar. Yeah, yes. So basically, once you have the push down automata with one stack memory, you can find out the corresponding language, and from the language you can find the grammar, the context-free grammar. Or if the context-free grammar is there, from the context-free grammar you can find out the context-free language, and from the context-free language you can construct the machine push down automata with single stack. All these things are equivalent. You can move from one to the other, or other to the next one. Right.
Okay, sir. And context dependent language that we will not study.
I will briefly, I will just briefly give you the definition, but we will not discuss in detail because that is beyond the scope of this course actually. Okay. Yeah. So I think the
Okay.
idea was to give you the basic understanding, which is very, very important, because not everybody is picking up this elective course later on in the semester. Because whatever right now we are talking about, it's a fundamental to computer science. If you really want to understand computer science, you need to understand these four machines and their correspondence. Because this, even if you want to develop the compiler or all other things, this is a very, very fundamental thing. Okay. Or even in your machine learning things, all kind of things, so you will see that these things are very, very important actually. That's why we are covering the basics, so you have the basic idea. There are only 2 assignments on this, which is enough to give you some idea about it. And later on, when you do a full-fledged course on this, you can do much more details, about this. Okay.
And sir, the context related dependent language is included in TOC slides.
Yeah, it is there. Yeah.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
Yeah, if you
Yes,
want to
sir.
read, you can read it, no problem, right? Those slides are there, you can download and read. Okay.
Sir, I
So
had a doubt that here states refer to the position of the tape pointer, right?
what?
Sir, here the states refer to the position of the pointer over here.
No, the
It,
state is a state, the machine in some state. Here we represent it like this, so we write it actually, so I will show you. So here we are writing like this, this means that Q0, we are in a Q0 state, and so this is a symbol, this is a Q0 pointing to Y means, so we are in Q0 state and the head is reading Y. It's just a symbolic representation, that's all.
okay, sir. And here in Turing machines, instead of moving the tape, we move the pointer with time, right?
Correct.
Yes, sir. Yes.
Head will move. In
Yes.
fact,
Yes.
in the next class, probably I will briefly to touch about different other kind of Turing machines. There are many variations on Turing machines, which you can see. I'll give very brief idea, not in much detail.
And sir, is it allowed to write a blank space in Turing machine?
Yeah, you can do that.
Okay, sir. Yes.
As a programmer, you have more full flexibility. Whatever you want to do, you can do it. So I think in the next class it will be more clear when I'll talk about some computations with Turing machines. Right now I talked about accepting some languages. In the next class, I'm going to talk about accepting certain computation with certain functions. Adding 2 numbers. Then you will understand much more details. Okay.
And sir, what is
Right.
the significance of these blank spaces over here?
So blank spaces encloses so whenever we want to give the input string, so somewhere we need to have a marker, right? Okay, so input string is finished. So before of the input string, there's a blank symbol, and after the input string, there's a blank symbol. Okay. So it signifies, okay, from here the input starts and here the input ends.
Yes, okay. Yes, understood, sir. Yes.
Sir, in Turing machine language, can we have multiple final state?
Yeah. Okay. I'll talk about more about when we look at more examples. Okay. Then we'll see. Okay.
And sir, you said that from final state we cannot go anywhere.
Yeah. So for
So,
final state, there is no further transitions actually in the Turing machine.
so
It is not allowed.
this
And
this
in the
is
Turing machine.
restrict ourselves, and this is also what I mean. DFA has more power than it, so how can it be?
No, Turing machine is more powerful actually. I think you see one very simple way is that, as you know, the language A and BN cannot be accepted by DFA or NFA, right? Because if
Yeah.
you want to accept it by DFA or NFA, you require infinite number of states, which is not there in the DFA, right? It's a deterministic finite automata. The number of states are finite, right? Whereas in the Turing machine, that is not the requirement, right? So, basically you can accept the A and B and CN or A and BN with the Turing machine. So this is obviously much more powerful machine. You can accept more languages. So whatever can be accepted by DFA, NFA can be accepted by Turing machine as well. It's a much more powerful machine. So basically, the less powerful machine is DFA, NFA. After that, pushdown automata with single stack, then linear bounded automata. So in the linear bounded automata, what happens? You restrict the tape. So here right now in the tape, you can move and go anywhere on the tape. in the deterministic in the Turing machine. But in case of linear bounded automata, you say that okay, from box number 25 to box number say 55, you are only allowed to move between these two boxes. So you're not allowed to move anywhere else. So you restrict the tape. So that's why it is known as linear bounded automata. You are restricting the tape. Okay. So that's a special kind of. So you need to design the program in such a way or transition in such a way that you cannot go beyond that space that is allocated to you on the tape. Okay.
And
so that's
sir, this linear bounded language is content dependent language, right?
yeah, they are known as context sensitive languages.
So, sir, Turing machine, we can say that Turing machine is a push down automata with two stacks. So,
Correct,
how
correct.
can we define context dependent language in this way?
Yeah, so I think right now this question is beyond the scope. Right now, you don't worry. So unless you understand the how two stack system works, then you can think about it. So you can leave that question right now. So when you do this course in more details, you will understand more. Okay.
Okay. And sir, the restriction in Turing machine that we cannot go from final state to anywhere is also came from the two stack representation of Turing machine.
Yeah, so I'm saying that unless you understand the two stack thing, or maybe if you are too much curious, I would say that see if you can map a push down automata with two stack. Of course, you need to study a little bit about it, and then you see if you can map with the Turing machine. Actually, what happens, right now what I'm covering is a very basic Turing machine, and then I'll talk about variation on the Turing machine briefly. So those variations are useful in mapping it with the the PDA with two stack and so on. So one stack content you can put into one tape, another stack content you can put on another tape, and so on. Those kind of variations are possible. So right now you don't know about it, so that's why I think you will not be able to understand it. So once maybe when I'll talk about the variation on the Turing machines, then you can try to map it. See how things can be mapped. Okay.
Okay, sir. Thank you.